makes most women start a business? Is it passion, money, or freedom? Welcome to Female Founders, the podcast that takes you behind the scene with women who are founders and CEOs to help you start and scale a successful business of your own. I am your host, Nagelia de Ravin. Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Female Founders. In today's episode, I have the pleasure of speaking with Melissa Griffiths. Melissa is a former high-performing business development executive who spent over 25 years immersed in the world of revenue generation and corporate success. In 2016, she had an accident that forced her to reevaluate her priorities and start a remarkable transformation. Today, she is the founder and CEO of Ascension Inc., empowering individuals to understand how their thoughts and emotions impact their physical health. Thank you, Melissa. It's a pleasure to have you here with me today, and I'm excited to learn more about your work. So now, can you share with us your personal journey from transitioning from a high-performing business executive to a holistic health advocate?
Yeah, so there's a journey, obviously. And about 10 years ago, I had an accident that left me with a concussion. And the concussion took 2 years to heal. And during that time, I went through a lot. As you can imagine, I had 2 young kids at the time. I had to go on disability leave at work. And it was hard to even walk my kids to school because I had vertigo and migraines and nausea and a lot of symptoms. And obviously, I had some mental health challenges that came along with that because I was no longer the person that I needed to be. And I had to work through a healing journey myself. And through that process, realized the power that the body has to heal and just became fascinated with the brain and with neuroscience and how it all works. And so on the side, in the evenings and weekends, I started to study and I became qualified in different modalities just because I really enjoyed it. And then I started talking to people who asked me if I could help them. And it kind of snowballed from there. And then in January of this year, I was given the opportunity to go out by myself. And I wish I'd done it years ago because it's just been a great journey. I love what I do. And even though I enjoy being in the corporate world, being in an environment now where I can actually help people who are in that stressful state 24/7, it's very powerful. So my accident has actually turned out to be a huge blessing.
Sometimes the things that happen to us, we have the choice to turn it to something good or keep it as a negative in our life. But sorry, but what was the turnaround? Like you get to a car accident. I'm pretty sure you went to like a very, like you said, a very tough time where like, why this is me and why this happened to me? But what makes you make the decision like, wait a minute, I can fix this or I can do something with my life even with this?
Yeah, I went down all the roads initially, as you can imagine, of Western medicine. And the doctors I worked with were fantastic, but they didn't have an answer to why my symptoms were not clearing. And like I said, it took 2 years, which is a long time to be in a position where you don't have a path to healing. And during that time, I started to do my own research and I just started to learn about different healing modalities because I never really learned about holistic health at all. And I joined different online groups and I connected with people and heard their journeys and heard their stories and heard what worked for them. So for me, it was a combination. I learned about HeartMath, which I'm now a practitioner in, which really helps the brain and the heart connect from a coherent perspective. And then I learned about BodyTalk, which uses the body's innate wisdom to heal. And then I also learned about emotional resolution, which helps us resolve emotions like trauma, panic, anxiety, depression, all of which I went through during that period. And they were so powerful that I want to learn more. And just as I studied, I became qualified in them because it was fun. And now I realize that I can use those qualifications to actually help others. And it's been a fantastic journey.
So now what led what led to your realization that your thoughts, feelings, and emotions can impact your physical well-being?
Yeah, great question. I think if you look at how neuroscience works and how the brain actually works as well, you can see how our our emotions and our thoughts actually can affect our heart rhythms and can affect our state of well-being. And I noticed in myself that my thoughts, the way I was thinking was actually impacting me physically. Now, I'm not saying that we have to put a smile on our face, because obviously there's a lot that goes with that. But I realized I was stuck in this pattern of negative self-talk and dealing with emotions of I'm never going to get better. This is going on for so long. And by switching those, while it doesn't immediately change you physically, it does give you a hope and a path to be able to do something. And the science also shows that when we do that, it puts us in a more coherent state. And in that state is when healing can happen, and we'll have less physical impact on our bodies.
Do you think that this is one of the issues us as human we face? The fact that we carry with us all of these negative thoughts, feelings, and then all these things that we don't actually need to really carry with us?
Yeah, it is a very human condition of how we overthink things. I mean, if you look at, say, the animal world, and let's say a lion is chasing a deer, when the chase is over and the deer immediately goes back to grazing, it doesn't sit around and start stressing and panicking about what happened. It goes back to that parasympathetic state. Whereas humans, we relive experiences, which actually is a very human thing to do. And it is important for our survival to learn from our mistakes. Yet we overthink them and we worry about them. And by doing that, the brain doesn't know the difference between being in the moment of stress, like chased by the lion, versus us thinking about it again and again. The same processes happen. And that's certainly what was happening with me. Is I was reliving my accident. I was reliving, why am I having to go through this? Poor me. And my brain was not able to get better because I was in that state of thinking myself sick all the time. And there is a lot of science behind how our thoughts can really impact us like that.
Do you think that if you stay within that thought, that all this type of feelings, do you think that you will be healed today?
Say the question again, sorry.
Let's say that you stay the way you are, like with all these thoughts, feelings, the way you are. Do you think that you would have been who you are today, or do you think that your life would have changed in a different way?
Yeah, I don't know, and that's why I say my accident was a blessing, because if I hadn't have had my accident, I probably wouldn't have gone down this path. Yes. And it wasn't even on my radar. I was not into holistic medicine. I never really spent any time thinking about my health. I'd been pretty blessed up to that point. Physically and mentally, I'd always been in a great place. So that's why I say my accident was a blessing, because otherwise I don't think I would have got there. And I think that we need to see more people share their stories and share how they can heal themselves too, and give them that power to realize that there are, in certain situations, we can heal ourselves. And there's stories of people who've healed terminal diseases through thoughts, emotions, processes. And there's lots of different people out there who teach this and have different modalities that they subscribe to. But I do believe that in the power of thought and the power of manifestation, of how if we put out what we want and we move towards that, then in a vibratory universe, it will bring it back to us. Now, if you told me that 10 years ago, I would have walked you out the door thinking it was complete crock. But I've come to realize that there is a power in that, and it's helped me. So I wanted to share my story.
And I think your story is helping a lot of people. So now let's move on to your company. You started your own company, which could you give us an overview of the organization and its mission? And how do you apply your expertise and certification to support others in their journey toward improved health and well-being?
Yeah, well, it was a brave move, because for over 25 years, I was in the corporate world and I was working in a very stressful job, which at the time I enjoyed, but I didn't realize how it was impacting me physically. And obviously my accident gave me the opportunity to see that. And so I started a business to bring that story to other people And what I do now is I work individually with people, helping them identify areas in their life where their thoughts, emotions might be impacting them. And then I also work at the corporate level with teams, looking at mental health challenges in themselves and identifying it in others. Because when we're in a management team, we do have a duty of care to make sure that our employees are in a good place where they can be their best selves. And so I think trying to remove that stigma around mental health is certainly a mission of mine. And I bring different modalities that I've been trained in, and I've built out a series of seminars and a series of courses that walks people through how they can take control of their health themselves.
When you said that you work with organizations, do you work with the leaders, or do you provide one-on-one coaching with all the employees or the staff members, or is it workshop? How does that work exactly?
Yeah, well, I've chosen to work with the professional service industry because that's certainly where my background was. And I think that those industries like lawyers, accountants, bankers, they are more prone to stress. Certainly the statistics support that. But when you're in an environment with client deadlines, with billable hours, it's basically you're on 24/7. There's obviously a huge amount of stress that comes with that. And so I've chosen to work in those industries. And within them, I either work with the emerging managers, emerging leaders, because when they get to become that place where they're taking on responsibility of people, there's a lot of training around how to be a good leader and how to do time management, but there's not so much training around how to recognize mental health challenges. And so I work with that group. And then I also work with people who are a little more senior, who have been in a state of stress and in a stressful role for a very long time. And the program I've built out is called the Science of Stresslessness, which is a word I invented. But it's the
I like it already.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, I want to be stressless. So stresslessness to me is being in that state, and it's being able to address things as they happen, rather than say at the end of the day, you've had a very stressful day and you do a yoga class. While I'm not knocking the yoga class, I think being able to address things as they come up is much more powerful, because then it doesn't impact the body the same way physically. You just kind of pushed it all down and then it all blows up at a different point.
But this is amazing though, because if I know that a lot of time people, you feel tired or you're stressed out from your work or this, just do yoga, go for a run, and that should be it. But I don't think that in the long run, that's the best way to go, because you have to learn how to manage your own stress to be able to live longer. Because from what I understand, that from stress is one of the number one cause of death in the world, which is should be a big deal for us.
Absolutely. And it's not just about managing the stress, because I agree going for a run and doing yoga is all good and we should do them all. But it's about building a level of resilience. So there's not that one thing that happens that kind of pushes you over the edge. Because a lot of times people say, it was such a small thing and it just affected me so large. I think at that point, your resilience is so low that you're not able to take on anymore. And sometimes that manifests in just paralysis, where people literally, I just can't take on anymore. And it's because their stress levels got so high. So being able to deal with it throughout the day and kind of maintain that level of balance and build up resilience is really where I focus. I don't want people to get to that point where they've kind of tipped over the edge, as it were.
So I will think that by that time, it's pretty much worse, right?
Yeah. I mean, at that point, it can manifest in the physical body. I mean, digestion issues, headaches, heart issues, they're all symptoms of stress. When we've been in that sympathetic fight-flight state for too long, our body just can't handle it. And while we need a certain amount of stress in our lives, we're not robots. We don't want to live in a permanent state where our bodies are just starting to break down because of it.
Absolutely. So now earlier you mentioned being a certified HeartMath practitioner, and also that from reading about you also certified emotional resolution and certified BodyTalk practitioner. Oh my goodness. You took this very seriously after your accident. So now,
Yeah.
can you explain this? Can you explain this? What are they about? Why do you need them? What's the purpose of them?
Yeah, I love HeartMath because it's a very scientific approach. So they've been around for 30 years and they're a nonprofit. And their goal really is to help people understand the impact that our thoughts and emotions can have on us, how they affect our heart rhythms, and then how that can affect our physical body. And they've built out tools and techniques to help people in the moment, which is it's one of the things I incorporate into my program. So I love that piece of it because it's proven many times over. Emotional resolution is through the Emotional Health Institute, also actually in San Francisco, as is the HeartMath Institute. And that looks at how to deal with emotions and remove any anxiety or repeated patterns that can happen from those emotions. So an example might be if you have a car accident and then every time you get in a car, you feel that sense of anxiety. Or maybe you have a fear of spiders. And it really looks at how the brain constructs our emotions and makes predictions based on the past. And then it helps to update them so that we can remove those unwanted emotions in certain situations, and they're removed permanently. And then BodyTalk looks more at the how our thoughts and emotions impact the physical body based on our innate wisdom. So it's based on the concept that our body knows how to heal itself. So if you cut your finger, you don't have to think about it healing it. The body will do it naturally. And it can do the same with all symptoms as long as attention is brought to it and it's ready to heal. And so it uses a form of kinesiology as well as the innate wisdom of the practitioner and the client to bring about positive change within the body. So combining all those three really does bring a very holistic approach. I personally have had phenomenal results for me and my family, and I've worked with a lot of different people now, and it's life-changing. And so it's really powerful to be able to see how once you give people that power and you educate them, they can actually do this themselves. I basically work myself out of a job, which I'm totally fine to do because I think people need this. They need this responsibility, they need this power, and obviously the more I can educate people, the better.
I never met anyone that take the three of them and combine them to one.
Yeah, there's lots of different modalities out there. I chose those three because they're proven, they're scientific, they work for me. I'm sure there's others out there that people love as well. There's no one path to healing. I think find what works for you and what resonates. But for me, I chose those because they're just so powerful.
So now, what are some common misconceptions or misunderstanding that you have encountered when it's come to mind-body connection?
Oh, good question. I am the person most guilty of that because I used to think it was nonsense. Really, I did. I remember a friend asking me once about my path, and we were talking about the universe. And I just looked and I said, "You're mad. What are you talking about?" Because for me, I didn't really understand. And I think it was an education thing. So I'd say a common misconception is people just don't really understand it. And I think also there is a level of responsibility that comes with this. You take control of your own healing. Many times it can be so easy to just pop a pill. And certainly there's times when that's important and necessary. I'm not knocking that at all. But I think we need to be in a place where that's not going to be a permanent fix. We have to accept, I need to be able to do some work here in order to heal myself. And it's hard and it takes time and it's not always easy. Sometimes we're dealing with past traumas that people might not want to relive again. And so there's a level of responsibility that comes with it, which I think sometimes people aren't always in a position to take on. And hopefully when they're ready, they will. And if not, that's their path too. I think another misconception, people don't understand the science behind it. Because I think the last 30 years, we've really started to understand how thoughts and emotions impact us, how the brain works, neuroscience, the plasticity of the brain. Up until recently, that was never really accepted by the scientific community, but there's been a lot more research to show how that can impact. And even things like meditation can really impact the brain, which then impacts the physical body. And also the power of the heart. Like, it was always thought to just be a pump, but now there's a lot of research that the heart has a brain itself and actually takes in and produces a lot more information than the brain does, sends more to the brain than the brain sends to the heart. So I think we're getting there slowly. We need more money and funding in this area to really prove this out and make it more mainstream. Hopefully we'll get there. When people start seeing it and feeling the differences, that's when the changes start to happen.
So it's also sound like with what you do, education become a very big part of it. You don't just tell them go do this, but you seems like you take the time to teach them, make them understand why this is important.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think in order for people to be able to take this on and make those changes, they have to understand it. If it's just me talking at them, we're not going to get there. But when they understand the science behind it, when I don't get too technical, but I do teach about the brain and how the brain works. And I do teach about how things impact the physical body. And I always say it's not an anatomy class, but we do also need to understand our bodies because we live in them 24/7. And yet a lot of people can't even point to certain organs in the body. So I think being able to educate people is the first step to seeing how this all works. And then you see the click and the light bulb goes off. It really is very powerful. I've had people say to me, literally, this has changed my life. And to me, that's so rewarding. That's what I want to do.
I feel like this is a passion.
Yeah, it is. I mean, yeah. I took a career pivot, and in many ways it was quite brave, maybe a little bit stupid at this time in my life. I don't know, but it's what I want to do. And I just feel so at ease and happy every single day because I know I'm really doing what's important to me.
I don't think it was a stupid decision. I think that you follow your heart and you did what you felt that was right. And guess what? It turns out just fine.
Exactly. Yeah. It's hard to sometimes do that because you get in a place after a certain number of years where you are in a career and then that's the career for the rest of your life because it's hard to make a switch and society doesn't always allow people to kind of jump around like that. They're looking for experience, obviously. And when we move jobs, they're looking for what have you done that's similar. And so you get caught. And so that's why I say maybe it was stupid in that I had to completely step out of the known. But also I'm able to bring all that experience to my work now. And so for me, it was just been a very natural, very easy and very right transition.
Yes, because you went through it. It's not something that you decided, hey, let me get those certifications because I want to become this. But that's something you yourself, you deal with it. You went through it. You feel the pain. You know how it feels. Don't get me wrong. Not every experience will be the same. But at least you have an idea what that person is going through. And how can you actually help someone to make that change? And you are right. And a lot of the things that you said are 100% right because we should care about our body. We should know it. And the more you know it, the better it is. And then one thing that I've seen people, they do it a lot is I have a headache. Oh, let me get an Advil. It's like when I have a headache, you tell me here's an Advil, I put it in the trash. I don't need an Advil for that. I need to take a shower, put some water over my hair, lay down, maybe take a nap for 30 minutes, and I wake up, I'm fine.
Yeah.
So you're right.
Absolutely. We live in a culture where we're not prepared to go through that pain. And, we're busy, right? We've got responsibilities, we've got work, we've got families. There's a lot going on. So I think I'm giving people some grace with that. and also wanting to educate of there are other alternatives. There's power in doing that work, and there's power in moving through all those experiences. And if you're getting a lot of headaches, rather than just taking a pill to fix them, let's look at why. And this is one piece. There's probably a lot of other things that go along with that. I'm not a nutritionist. I don't deal with structure. There's probably other areas that could be looked at, but this certainly is a component. And taking control of that piece of the component is really powerful.
So what are some daily practices or habits that you recommend to promote balance, well-being, and resilience in our busy lives, like you just said?
Yeah, I love the HeartMath techniques for that because they are quick, easy, bite-sized little techniques that really bring us back to ourselves and bring us into that coherent state easily. So I commit to myself whenever I feel myself just maybe getting off center, which happens a lot. I work, I've got 2 kids. I mean, I'm human. And we all get pulled out, drive down the freeway, and I can feel that frustration as someone cuts me off. So I make a point to really focus and bring myself in. So I think for me, that's the number one thing because it's immediate. I also try things like meditation and I exercise. I try to eat healthy. I do yoga. All those things are important and give myself some self-love. But for me, it's like dealing with it at the time. And then I also try to look at different emotions. I do keep a gratitude journal and I do look at where I want to go and what's kind of stopping me from getting there. I do a lot of inner work as well. Meditation is fantastic for that, but that takes time. So in an ideal world, I do it every day, but realistically, it's a couple of times a week. Do as I say, not as I do, right? Yes. But I think just being able to be aware of them while we're living our lives too. And this shouldn't take over our lives, but it should be something that we're thinking about regularly, like how am I feeling today? And what are my triggers? What's taking me off center? Once you notice what those triggers are, it's really powerful to then be able to fix them or at least address them. And so I do keep a note at the end of the day, like where was I off? What went well, what did not? And just kind of assessing that, I think, is powerful. It gives you that power back.
So now let's say that when you talk about the freeway, which is a very great example, so I'm about to use it against you for a second. So now let's say that we are on the freeway and there's always some human being that's going to try to almost hit your car to pass in front of you. So probably you get very angry. Some of us, that happen. We get mad. We want to even get out of the car and hit that person if we could, but we cannot. So at that moment, what would be your advice to just bring yourself back?
Yeah, I'll share a technique with you, which is from the HeartMath Institute, which is really easy. It takes 15 seconds, 10 seconds, but it's really powerful. So I invite you to join me if you'd like to do it. It's called the quick coherence technique.
Okay.
So what we do is the person cuts us off in front of us. The first thing I do is I bring awareness to the center of my heart, center of my chest, and I imagine my breath flowing in and out of that area. And you can do it with eyes open, eyes closed. If you're driving, obviously, you're not going to close your eyes. But just imagine your breath coming in and out of the heart. And then I just bring to mind something that gives me joy, gratitude, compassion. And it can be a person, a place, a thing, an experience, something that just changes my state. And I just bring that to mind and breathe it in again through the heart. And that's all it is. And that quick coherence, and you can actually measure the heart rhythms that take place in something like that. And you can see the change that happens. HeartMath have a really great app, and there's plenty of others out there too, where you can see the heart rhythm. And so I've tracked it personally, and I've seen how that brings me back into coherence. And that took 10, 15 seconds. It's less once you know the method. So that's what I do when my kids are going crazy and beating each other up. I I talk to them through my heart rather than getting in that place. And I think just being able to do that and being able to center is to me is the most powerful technique.
I love it. It's like at the moment you remind yourself why this world is so why do you want to be here? Why is it so important to you? So I would guess like another great thing will be to remember your purpose in this world, because once you remember your purpose, that should bring you back to a stage of stable.
Absolutely. And the power in that technique is when you bring to mind a different emotion. That's what makes it so powerful, because at that point you are changing. You're changing your frame of mind, which then changes your whole physical body. I always say to my kids, if they're sad, smile, because it's really hard to be sad when you are smiling. And so obviously that's hard to do sometimes when we're really in that state, but just doing that actually does trigger a whole different bunch of hormones, which then can impact us. So just that short little clip there really makes a powerful difference to the body.
I don't know where you've been all my life. So now let's go a little bit back into your company. So how can an individual or a business can reach out to you for support?
Thank you for asking. Yeah, I do have a website, which is active-ascension.com. And my email's on there as well. There's a contact me form. That's probably the easiest way to do it. I'm also on LinkedIn. My handle is just Melissa Griffiths. So I'm pretty active out there, but I would start with the website.
But why did you choose that name, Ascension? What's the meaning behind it?
Yeah, I love Ascension because for me, that's moving to a different place and kind of also stepping up. And so when we get to that point of wanting to make a change, to me, that raises us up and we're ascending to a different place. So I just chose that name because it meant a lot in that respect. And I put the active in front of the website because it's also something that doesn't happen passively. We actually have to take a step in that direction. So active-ascension. The company's Ascension Inc.
So I know that you provide your services to individuals, but also an organization. So do you also help small businesses, or let's say it's a company, someone that's just starting their own company, it might be just one person, or someone that's going through a trauma issues in their life right now. So where is your limit when it's come to helping?
Yeah, I do tend to focus at the corporate level. So I'm working in professional services. That being said, with making those connections has led to other things as well. So I now work with the kids of some of the partners in the companies. And a lot of teens really are having issues around depression, anxiety, panic, especially coming out of COVID. So it's kind of, it's led to almost another area where I can do that one-on-one. But initially I wanted to go into professional service firms because I'd seen firsthand the stress that's involved with that. And I understood how they worked, and I understood how a partnership works and what it takes to kind of to be successful in that environment. So that's really where I started. And who knows? I mean, we'll see where it goes. I do enjoy working one-on-one with people. That's very powerful. People are willing to open up and talk about themselves, and that's when the changes happen. But I think also having some health at the company level, because we spend so much time at work, and a lot of times stress at home can be linked back to work, when just that environment where there's a lot of stress, a lot of expectations, and so that can impact family life too. So I think at this point, I'm just seeing where it goes. I'm just enjoying working with people, enjoying seeing positive shifts. Who knows what the future brings?
You never know. God will take you there as long as you follow your heart.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
do you go outside of the country or just within the United States?
Well, I'm originally from England, and I do have a lot of connections there. And I do go back regularly, usually for extended periods. So I have started to work with people over there. It started with my family and friends, obviously, and now it's expanded. So I don't have a formal business over there, but I do work with people in the UK, and we do a lot of remote as well, because a lot of this can be done over Zoom. So yeah, I guess in that sense, maybe I'm international, but for the most part, the business is located in the US, and that's where I actively work with people.
I think that now you're international, sir, to say that.
I love it.
So one last question for you before I let you go. What advice would you give to someone who is currently facing physical health and challenges, but looking to explore the mind-body connection and the healing journey?
Yeah, well, obviously, if they're having physical challenges, they should speak with their primary care physician first. I would say, start there, rule out anything really serious. And then if they're looking at starting down the body-mind, HeartMath is a great way to start because of all the research that they've done in it. I think starting to do things like meditation, there's some really good books out there. One of my favorite is The Biology of Belief by Bruce Lipton. And he was a very scientific biologist who started to realize that thoughts and emotions can impact the cells at a cellular level. And then that's been taken to so many different levels now. I also love Dr. Joe Dispenza, who a lot of people may have heard of. He's got some great podcasts out there. Lynn McTaggart does a lot around the power of intention. So I think there's a lot of, start Googling and listening to podcasts. There's a lot out there. And then once you're in a place where you think there might be something to all this mumbo jumbo, then give me a call, because that's when we can start to get to that point of, okay, now you can take control of it. Now you're open to it. Let's take control. But also, like meditation, just go inwards and listen to your body. Like, really, what's my body trying to tell me? Our bodies are very literal, and they do talk to us through aches, pains, feelings. Like I always say, how do you know that you feel sad? Well, you have those feelings in your body. Your body is actually talking to you. How do you know it's anger versus anxiety versus happiness? It's all how your body is feeling. So I think starting to recognize how your body feels regularly is a really important step.
So listen to your body.
Yeah, they call it interoception, but it's like, what is my body trying to tell me? If I'm having a headache, okay, what's the pattern here? What's starting that? Once I've ruled out that I don't have anything really serious, what is the pattern to how my body's feeling? What are my triggers? And how's that manifesting? And once you know that, then that's 60% to actually addressing it.
You know, one thing that's come to mind, do you offer any public speaking? Like,
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do some keynotes, and I haven't done it yet, but I really am hoping to get on the stage for a TEDx or something like that. I think just being able to bring this message out is really important.
I think so too. And I think that if you do more public speaking and in more education, educating the people out there that why this is so important, especially after COVID, everything changed in our life. And then until now, we're still dealing with a lot of these things, and the economy is not getting any better. And life is changing. Prices are doubling. The things I used to buy for $2, now you're buying it for $5. It's changing a lot, and that's a lot of stress in our lives. If you can learn to handle the situations and be able to move past onto them and be in the stage where you are right now, I feel like you are like in that stage where if I tell you a serial killer is behind you, you probably will know what to do because your body is so calm. And I think that it's a great thing. We need to be able to do that, and not all of us can do that.
Right.
We are not taught to do that. It's not something they teach us in school or anything like that.
And that's the key. We all can do it. We just don't all know how to do it. And it's not been educated. I agree. I think this should be taught in schools. I think mindfulness, meditation, power of the body needs to be taught in schools, because that will last us through our whole lives. I haven't done algebra since I left high school, but being able to take control of my body, I think is really powerful. And there's different levels. I mean, there's different levels of stress that we could have, with financial and relationship and whatever. But once you have a foundation that teaches you that you can actually take control of it, I think the world would be a much happier place.
Absolutely. Anything else you'd like to share with us before I let you go today?
No, this was great. Thank you for taking the time to chat with me.
Well, thank you for sharing your knowledge, because knowledge is everything in this world. And I don't think people realize that regardless if you spend money or not, you spend the time, and the time is a lot. So I appreciate you taking the time to share that with me, and also with the audience that are going to listen, read, or watch it, however that's going to happen. But it's important that we keep sharing our message with others, and that's what you are doing. And you take a bad experience, you turn it to something powerful. And I thank you for that.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for listening to Female Founders Podcast. That's it for this week's episode. Be sure to follow us on your favorite podcast app or connect with us on womel.com so that you don't miss our next episode. See you next time. Bye for now.